Listening, fill in the blanks.
Let's start.
The painting is set late at night in a 19th-century Parisian nightclub. A barmaid stands alone behind her bar, fitted out in a black bodice that has a frilly white neckline, and with a spray of flowers sitting across her décolletage. She rests her hands on the bar and gazes out forlornly at a point just below the viewer, not quite making eye contact. Also on the bar are some bottles of liquor and a bowl of oranges, but much of the activity in the room takes place in the reflection of a mirror behind the barmaid. Through this mirror, we see an auditorium, bustling with blurred figures and faces, men in top hats, a woman examining the scene below her through binoculars, another in long gloves, even the feet of a trapeze artist demonstrating acrobatic feats above his adoring crowd. In the foreground of the reflection, a man with a thick mustache is talking with the barmaid.
Ever since its debut at the Paris Salon of 1882, art historians have produced reams of books and journal articles disputing the positioning of the barmaid and patron in a bar at the Folies. Some have even conducted staged representations of the painting in order to ascertain whether Monet's seemingly distorted point of view might have been possible after all. Yet while academics are understandably drawn to the compositional enigma of the painting, the layperson is always likely to see the much simpler, more human story beneath. No doubt this is the way Monet would have wanted it.
At the age of 13, Miles Davis was given his first trumpet. Lessons were arranged with a local trumpet player, and a musical odyssey began. These early lessons, paid for and supported by his father, had a profound effect on shaping Davis' signature sound. Whereas most trumpeters of the era favored the use of vibrato, a wobbly quiver, in pitch inflected in the instrument's tone, Davis was taught to play with a long, straight tone, a preference his instructor reportedly drilled into the young trumpeter, with a rap on the knuckles every time Davis began using vibrato. This clear, distinctive style never left Davis. He continued playing with it for the rest of his career, once remarking, "If I can't get that sound, I can't play anything." Not everyone was supportive of Davis' change of tune. Compared to the recordings of his early career, universally applauded as linchpins of the jazz oeuvre, trumpeter Winston Marsalis derided his fusion work as being not true jazz, and pianist Bill Evans denounced the corrupting influence of record companies, noting that rock and pop draw wider audiences. In the face of this criticism, Davis remained defiant, commenting that his earlier recordings were part of a moment in time that he had no feel for anymore. He firmly believed that remaining stylistically inert would have hampered his ability to develop new ways of producing music. From this perspective, Davis' continual revamping of genre was not merely a rebellion, but an evolution, a necessary path that allowed him to release his full musical potential.
In the early days of mountaineering, questions of safety, standards of practice, and environmental impact were not widely considered. The sport gained traction following the successful 1786 ascent of Mont Blanc, the highest peak in Western Europe, by two French mountaineers, Jacques Balmat and Michel Gabriel Picard. This event established the beginning of modern mountaineering, but the sole consideration over the next 100 years was the success or failure of climbers in reaching the summit and claiming the prestige of having made the first ascent.
Given the environmental damage rock climbing can cause, this may be a positive outcome. It is ironic that most rock climbers and mountaineers love the outdoors and have great respect for the majesty of nature and the impressive challenges she poses, but that in the pursuit of their goals they inevitably trample sensitive vegetation, damaging and disturbing delicate flora and lichens, which grow on ledges and cliff faces. Two researchers from a Canadian university, Doug Larson and Michelle McMillan, have found that rock faces, that are regularly climbed have lost up to 80% of the coverage and diversity of native plant species. If that were not bad enough, non-native species have also been inadvertently introduced, having been carried in on climbers' boots.
In any event, there can be no doubt that the era of the rock climber as a lone wolf or intrepid pioneer is over. Like many other forms of recreation, rock climbing has increasingly come under the fold of institutional efforts to curb dangerous behavior and properly manage our natural environments. This may have spoiled the magic, but it has also made the sport safer and more sustainable, and governing bodies would do well to consider heightening such efforts in the future.
Time travel took a small step away from science fiction and towards science recently, when physicists discovered that subatomic particles known as neutrinos, progeny of the sun's radioactive debris, can exceed the speed of light. The unassuming particle, it is electrically neutral, small but with a non-zero mass, and able to penetrate the human form undetected, is on its way to becoming a rock star of the scientific world.
Certainly, any prospective time travelers may have to overcome more physical and logical hurdles than merely overtaking the speed of light. One such problem, posited by René Barjavel in his 1943 text Le Voyageur Imprudent, is the so-called grandfather paradox. Barjavel theorized that, if it were possible to go back in time, a time traveler could potentially kill his own grandfather. If this were to happen, however, the time traveler himself would not be born, which is already known to be true. In other words, there is a paradox in circumventing an already known future. Time travel is able to facilitate past actions that mean time travel itself cannot occur.
A final hypothesis, one of unidentified provenance, reroutes itself quite efficiently around the grandfather paradox. Non-existence theory suggests exactly that, a person would quite simply never exist if they altered their ancestry in ways that obstructed their own birth. They would still exist in person upon returning to the present, but any chain reactions associated with their actions would not be registered. Their historical identity would be gone.
Like, share, subscribe the channel and press the bell icon for further updates.